grown up loving horses. That's one of my all-time passions. I'm a mum of two, worked in banking for 20 years, and then had an opportunity to take redundancy. When that arose, it really made me stop, reflect on what my passion points were, and decide, oh my gosh, I'm hitting 40 now. What am I going to do for the rest of my life? What do I want to be when I grow up?
Very good.
And so here I am now, business owner, working from home mostly, and absolutely loving it. Don't know why I didn't do this sooner, John.
I often ask myself the same question. But anyway, before we go into more detailed questions, can you tell the audience, what were you like as a child?
I was a very sporty child. I spent all of my time with horses. So every Saturday and Sunday, I cycled my bike 6 miles to go horse riding, worked all day with horses, picking up, horsey things, cleaning tack, riding horses. And then I cycled 6 miles home. And when I got home, then I would cycle down to the athletics track and go running. So I used to be a sprinter. So that's pretty much where all my childhood went, either with horses, on the bike, going somewhere to do with horses or athletics. That was me. And when I was at home, my brother and sister were much older than me, John, so I was a bookworm. I was at home on my own with pretty much with my dad. My mum used to work. My dad was very ill from before I was born. So we spent a lot of time, doing things that were hands-on, be it in the garden, building things and stuff like that. So I just love to, fix things and whatnot. So, yeah.
Well, very good. So I have a love of athletics also. I used to be a sprinter. My great achievement was winning the county championship a few times and coming second or third in Leinster. But that's many years ago, but it's more like jogging today at very best. As the years pass by, the slower you get. So you have to adjust your stride and adjust your running accordingly. So I love the sprinting. I love watching the 100-meter final in the Olympics. That's one of my highlights of the sporting calendar, I suppose you could say. And I like flat racing because around County Kildare and County Meath, there's plenty of good stud farms owned by Judmonte, Godolphin, Coolmore, Darrenstown, all those large racing groups. So there's plenty of interest around here in horse racing also. So never actually rode a horse, but never mind. Someday.
There's time for you yet, John.
I'm not sure if the horse would want me on their back, but anyway. Yeah. As a story brand certified guide, can you tell the audience how you help your clients to create their brand and develop their story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose first and foremost, to explain what story brand is to people who might not be familiar with that term, it's based on a framework, a 7-part framework that's created by author and entrepreneur Donald Miller. And essentially what it does is the 7-part framework breaks down questions that you need to determine answers to as it relates to your clients and your business. And so when you do that, then it enables you to clarify your marketing message and build your brand around that. So the 7 things are things like, what is your client's aspirational identity? Where are they looking to get to? What do they want?
Very good.
As it relates to your business, the types of problems that they have, be it external, internal problems, how you position yourself as an authority, expert, or thought leader in your industry. So without bragging too much and, coming across in the wrong way. But also then how you demonstrate empathy to that client. And, an example I like to give as well is in terms of giving clients a plan. If you go to the dentist and you say to your dentist, I've got a pain in my tooth, and the dentist says, oh, that's awful. What you want to hear from the dentist is that, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to x-ray the tooth. We'll have a look in the mouth, we'll x-ray the tooth, and then we'll decide what to do once we've seen what the damage is. So they want somebody who'll give them a plan. And then they need to also, part of the framework is about understanding, okay, what does success actually look like? And I help clients paint a picture of success with words, essentially. Yeah. But then also, what's at stake if the client doesn't take action? And sometimes we forget about that part in business because, if a client doesn't proceed to do work. Let's say if a client decides not to market their business, well, long term, what's that impact going to be on that particular business? There are stakes, whereas, success might be if the client markets their business, they may get more referrals, they may have more leads, they may have more prospects. Whereas if they don't, then what are the consequences of that happening? So the framework helps me, if you like, coach clients to determine that. And then part of what I help them to do is to create a brand story playbook. And so the brand story playbook really dives under the hood of the brand to determine what are their goals, what are their values, what's their purpose, what's their mission? What does the brand look like? What does the brand feel like? And how does that all tie in together with the brand message? And then at the end of that, how can the service and the experience that they create align with the messaging that they've put out into the world so that they're delivering on their promise as well? Because, for any money or investment in time that goes into your marketing message, essentially it's a cost. And if that experience that clients have when they engage with the business doesn't reflect the message, well, then it's a waste, because if they don't align, if they don't marry up, it's like, think of a hotel, John, and they have this fabulous marketing message and they show these gorgeous rooms that we'd all love to go and stay in, and this beautiful afternoon tea in the hotel, and they paint this gorgeous picture of what success looks like for a potential guest to the hotel on their website or social media. But when somebody arrives there, it looks nothing like the photographs. The bread is moldy and the afternoon tea sandwiches, or the beds are not made. It needs to align. And so be it the staff and the business owner, whoever, all of those people involved need to bring the whole thing together. So it's a full journey. That's what I do. So I hope that makes sense.
It does indeed. It makes perfect sense to me and to the audience, hopefully. Do you find when clients approach you to develop their brand and their story that they come along and they try to appeal to people's logic rather than to their emotions initially?
Absolutely. It's a very, very common mistake. And, particularly I find that data-driven professionals are much more likely to do that than people who are very empathic. And it's because they're logically brained, and often creative individuals are the opposite. They're very empathic. But what happens actually is that it's the emotions that are the things that will hook clients in, but it's the logical brain that will prompt them to actually go ahead and make a purchasing decision. So you need both in your marketing messaging and in your brand story, but one on its own or one in isolation will not prompt people to buy from you.
That's very true. Going back to the time you were made redundant and you spent a number of years working in the financial services sector, did it take you long to discover your purpose and to build your new business? And also, was there a gap there where you kind of felt to yourself, I've been let down by my employer, and where do I go next?
So the day that I was told I was being made redundant, I can't tell you the date, but it was September 2020. And it might have been a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And there were people, I was the branch manager in a bank, and there were people who were on holidays that I had to get in. So I knew there was a serious message coming, John. It was scary. Yeah, it was scary at the time. And when the message was delivered, for me, I was more concerned about how were my team going to manage? How were they going to survive? Because, what vacancies can they find, or where can they move to, or what are the options that are going to be available to them? And that was my initial reaction. And then beyond that, I suppose for me, the first thing I did was I did some self-coaching. So I really did stop and reflect on what did I love, because for me, I kind of thought, okay, well, this is an opportunity now to go and make a change. And I had felt for some time, probably for 5 years previous, I hadn't felt as fulfilled in my day as I did previous to that. And so the questions I asked myself were, well, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? You know,
Yeah, very good.
If money wasn't an issue, what would I do? I looked at things like, you know, the days I'd come home from work and I went, oh, I had a really great day and I couldn't wait to tell my husband and my kids about that. It was, what were those days? What had happened during the day that made me feel that way? I'm also part of several networking groups. So I'd reached out to a mentor in one of the networking groups.
Very good.
I had a conversation, and she's a coach. In a past life, she'd been a career coach, but she's a business coach now. And I'd said, you know, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of starting my own business. And I just kind of felt I needed somebody to validate that it was going to be a good idea and that I could potentially make it a success. And so she coached me for an hour. And in that hour, it made me sit in the belief that this is something I can do. So this all happened by mid-October of 2020, let's say. And by December 2020, I had my business plan created. I knew where I was going. I took Christmas off because we finished on the 17th of December. I took Christmas off, and mid-January, I started my business. I knew exactly what I was doing, who I was going to serve, how I was going to serve them. I had the whole thing planned out. And having studied customer experience before, I knew how to create customer journey maps. Being in networking groups, I'd attended events that were never relevant to me, even when I was an employee, but I went anyway going, you never know who I might meet, or, you know, I might learn something that I can apply in the bank or whatever it might be. And it might just be a different tack that nobody else is doing, and it might help me advance further or help my team in some way, and, you know, something like that. So all of those little things, they were little nuggets that helped me accelerate when I hit the ground, if that makes sense, John.
Just indeed, yes, yeah. Tell me, how did you cope with the transition from working in a very structured environment like financial services toward, you know, you moved out then into self-employment? How did you cope with that transition?
So I suppose the first thing that I really struggled with was my mindset around, when is my monthly wage going to come in, John? Because for 20 years I had my income. Well, I was in one bank for 17 years, another bank for 3 years. And so, for, you know, I always got paid on either the 25th or the 20th of each month. So when the 20th of January came and there was no credit into my bank account, that was the biggest shocker for me, being honest. And I really, it took me many months for my mindset to adjust to the fact that cash flow is going to be up and down. I need to look at things differently now. And, you know, I suppose I had that credit background where I could assess that financial piece and manage it effectively. That was the first thing. Some of the other things that I did was I hired a business coach.
Very good.
Which absolutely helped with the transition and just kept me on track. I don't always need people to hold me to account because I'm pretty good at doing that myself, but sometimes you just need somebody to bounce ideas off of and, you know, make sure that you're on the right track. So that was the first thing I did. The other thing I did was I invested in a mastermind. So to work with people who had maybe gone through some of the things that I was going through in the past and get advice from them on a regular basis as well, just to help brainstorm ideas and so on. I invested massively in my own personal development and education in terms of branding. So I went and did some training around branding, developed my own brand, developed my own website, built 2 brands because I have CX Creators and Deirdre Martin Consulting. So I built both of those. And then the final thing that I did was the StoryBrand certification. So all of those things combined really just helped me accelerate. And they helped with the transition as well, because the gaps that I felt that I had, people were able to support me in the different groups that I was in. So I kind of went to loads of different places to help with that transition.
Very good.
Get little bits from everywhere.
Yeah, I know what you mean there, yeah. Yeah, you can't do it all yourself. That's what I've learned in business. And you do need a coach from time to time to hold yourself accountable and to bounce ideas off, because the very worst thing you can do is come up with an idea that you think is the very best in the world. And then you go out there to talk to people and you get no reaction. In other words, it's not for them, and begin to doubt yourself.
Yes,
It's really important to have a coach tell you that idea, John or Deirdre, it's not so great. Can you think about it further before you go out there and talk to people about it and rephrase it? And very often what I found in business is that it's not what you say to people, it's how you say it that really counts, because you might have a very good idea, but if you lack a bit of conviction in saying it, or if the other person senses you don't fully, what's the word I'm looking for here? You don't fully believe in your own message, people are not going to buy from you.
100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on from that, tell the audience why brand identity is important in terms of customer experience.
Great question, John. I suppose first and foremost is, if you think about the brands that you're really familiar with, it can be the color of their logo, it can be the types of fonts they use, or it can be how they make you feel. And so often what happens is that when we become really familiar with a brand, when we even see the logo, it triggers an emotion. And brand identity, here's a couple of things a couple of reasons why it's essential. If you're consistent with your brand identity, it will absolutely help you become more memorable in the eyes of the people that see your brand. And it can be, as I say, colors or logo or whatnot. Like if I even throw out names like Coca-Cola, Red Bull, Disney, Netflix, and asked you, can you picture those logos? I'm guessing you'd say yes. Am I right?
In the main, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if it's a case that you're showing up on social media and you have an identity, or you don't have an identity, rather, that's visual, then it's more difficult for people to remember you or recognize you. And when you're consistent in terms of the identity that you show up with across all marketing collateral, the colors that you use can trigger people to recognize you and remember you by as much as 80%. So being consistent with your coloring and your identity and how you show up online can help with that recognition.
Very good.
The other thing as well with the brand identity piece is identity is not just necessarily about visual. It can be how you sound and the type of language that you use or the type of language you don't use. It can be a part of your brand's personality, and how I kind of say, how I help people visualize what this might look like for their brands when we're creating this sort of thing is, if you went to a party, how would your brand show up? Would it have pearl earrings and, a Chanel brooch? Or, would it be in a dicky bow with, what are they called? Braces and a pair of checkered trousers and shoes? What would it look like? Would it be accessorized or would it not? Would it be a wallflower? Would it be in the midst of the action? What would it look like? And those things can help engage people and bring them into your story as well, because the colors can evoke emotion. And when as I said, brand identity can evoke emotion. When we see a brand, it can cause us to feel or trigger something. And ideally with a brand and a business, what you want to happen is that it triggers some sort of an emotion, good or bad. The worst type of thing it can trigger is no memory at all. Because if we have no memory of a brand, it's not going to prompt us to talk about it or to go back to it. So if it's a good memory or a good emotion, fantastic. If it's a bad memory and a bad emotion, so be it, but it's better than none.
True. Very good. Good answer. Describe for the audience why feedback is a gift.
Oh, I like that question as well, John. Feedback is fantastic. Businesses should be asking for feedback from employees if they have them, and if not, customers directly. Essentially, we can learn what our customers want directly by asking them outright, what is it that we could do better? What could we improve on? What would you like to see next? and enhancing our offering all of the time to suit customers' needs, because our customers, our clients, what they want, what their expectations are can change externally based on other providers that are outside our industry, for example. So, if it's a case that, all of your clients shop on Amazon and they buy now with one click, and they land on your website, but it takes them 12 clicks to actually make a purchase, well, potentially they may go elsewhere because they felt that journey was onerous. So by asking clients, what could we do to improve, we can take that feedback and apply it in the experience that we create for clients so they feel better about the journey they've had and the overall experience. And again, try to create a positive memory and emotion when they finish the journey so that they'll talk about it in a positive way or come back and become loyal and repeat buyers.
Good answer indeed, yeah. Tell me, when you worked in financial services, you had one idea of success. Now that you're self-employed, you've got a different idea of success. Can you explain to the audience what those ideas of success were in financial services and now in your own business?
Oh, that's a good one. I suppose what's interesting about that is I don't know that I really did have an idea of success in my financial services role. And part of that might have been because I think, at certain times during my career, I had mentors and at other times I didn't. And, I think when you get to a stage where I had visualized myself and a picture of success was running a branch in Kilkenny City where I'm based. And when I got to that success, when I achieved that success, it was, okay, well, what's next? And it always seemed to be just climbing the ladder. But again, when I was being made redundant and I was being coached through this, that vision of success absolutely changed and wasn't at all what it used to be. So one of the things for me now that absolutely emanates success and part of my vision board, it's about two things: freedom and control. And it's about having the ability to go where I want and work where I want. So be it at home or work in person with a client. It can be to work abroad if I want to go on holidays and take the laptop with me, that I can do that should I choose, and not being tied so much to the 9 to 5 and policies and procedures and regulations and all of those things. But having freedom. And one of the questions you asked me earlier on was about the transition between the corporate world and your own business. Something that was very freeing and liberating, two things, in fact. One was there's no more glass ceiling about how successful I can be. I don't need to wait for somebody to promote me to achieve success. And success is going to look very different now to me, when I have little wins in my business all of the time in comparison to what it looked like when I was in the corporate world. So, there's no glass ceiling to what my earnings can be is the first part. But the second bit of that, John, I'd say is if you, when you have your own business and, you want to make a change or you want to implement something new, in the corporate world, you have to run it past 10 people up the ladder to see if that's something that you can do, if it's okay, if they're happy with you running with that. Whereas in your business, just like that, with a click of a finger, you can implement change and do what you want. And so that gives me that freedom and that feeling of liberation that I didn't know I felt constrained by until I started my own business.
That's a great answer to that question. So well done to you. And I know what you're saying there, that when you work in the corporate world, there are glass ceilings, and sometimes it's very hard to break through those glass ceilings because you have to prove yourself not just to yourself, but to 3 or 4 people more senior to you in the organization to get that promotion. Whereas in your own business, you can decide, it's up to you to decide how successful you want that business to be. And you have to put the effort in if you want to be successful in business, and to not just alone put the effort in, but you have to put the time and the money into that business to make it successful. because you don't develop a brand overnight. You have to get to know people. You have to develop your own intellectual property. And then people can look at that in your website, and then they can say to themselves, Deirdre or John is the person that I need to contact. That doesn't happen too easily in a small business. You have to take the time to develop that intellectual property and the brand.
I think just to add to that as well, John, I think one of the other major differentiators as well is purpose. And feeling that you're aligned with the purpose. And I know the show, a lot of people listening may have been made redundant from corporate roles in the past. And sometimes what I find is, because of the hierarchy and all of the different management levels throughout an organization, sometimes the purpose of the business or the business's mission gets lost, or it simply just gets broken down into, these are the targets you need to achieve in the business by the end of the year. And so there's no alignment, there's no feeling of purpose with the individuals in the organization and the business's overall purpose. In smaller businesses, it's much easier to articulate that because and again, this comes back to the brand story and sharing the brand story. But sometimes it takes business owners, it takes them some coaching or mentoring to determine what their purpose is so that they can, go forth and have that impact. But being able to share that purpose and kind of point at the horizon to the team and say, this is where we're going and this is why, that's incredibly motivating. And, aligned to that, Dan Pink, famous author who wrote the book Drive, he talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And if you go through the three of those, the autonomy is often, again, something that people don't have in the corporate world. To a degree, they probably have some, but they still, as I said, you have to go and check, is it okay to do this, and get sign off up the ladder. Yes, they can be masters at what they do in the organization, but sometimes those other two are just not where they could be. And again, for me, that purpose and being aligned with my purpose makes what I do now so much more fulfilling. And so that really helps.
Yeah, I know you're saying there that every large organization has its mission statement, and it doesn't necessarily appeal to your emotions, but within your business, your purpose has to appeal to your emotions, not just your emotions, but also your clients' emotions. Otherwise, it's going to be a disconnect between you and your clients.
Yes.
You're not going to be putting your heart and soul into helping your clients, be trying to appeal to their logic rather than to their emotions. Explain for your clients why they will not. Explain for the audience why your clients will not hire you for your job title, but for the pain that you can help them to avoid.
Yeah. So again, the dentist is the easiest example to give. You don't hire somebody just because they're a dentist or they're accountant. You hire them because they're going to get rid of the pain in your tooth, or they're going to help you avoid having to pay excess tax to the government when you've worked darn hard to make what you've made. And so people will pay for problems to be solved as opposed to just for your job title. So, if you're networking and you meet with somebody at an event and they say to you, what do you do?
Very good. Yeah.
And the person responds, I'm an accountant. Great. Okay. So, what exactly does that do for me? So they could say, how everybody's supposed to file a return at the end of the year, around October, November each year? Well, I help people make their returns as effective and efficient as possible so they keep more in their bank account than what they give to the government.
Yeah. In other words, not what they do, it's the problem they solve for their clients.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you just say, I'm an accountant, how does that differentiate you from all the other accountants out there who are providing the exact same service as you do? Because all over Ireland, there are many, small accountancy practices that have services tailored to the needs of farmers, shopkeepers, self-employed people who go in there once a year with their bag of invoices, or they need to have their tax return completed for them. So how does your service differentiate from your competitors? That's exactly the crucial answer you need to
Absolutely. And in that same way, if the service you provide is tailored to a particular demographic, even including that in the response that you give, you know how farmers, they work night, noon and morning to milk those cows, and they're bringing them in through the winter, and they're caring for them inside, and they're calving in the spring, and it's a long hard slog. Well, that's where I help them, so it's about having that conversation that ties into the emotions. And part of that, it's, even speaking it sounds like it's a bit of a rapport building. It's empathizing. It's highlighting what the problem is, and then agitating it ever so slightly, but providing a solution as well. That's a much better way to articulate what you do than simply saying, I'm a dentist or I'm an accountant.
True. Very good. Explain for the audience, employers or customers, which comes first in your business?
Oh, yeah, this is a great one. And I often get asked this question from businesses that I work with that have maybe 10 or more employees. And something I would say is, well, first things first is, if you have no customers, you have no business. So you need to look after your customers. The second thing is that you need to give your employees the time of day so that they feel empowered and motivated to go off and service your customers. So I was actually at an event last week, and this conversation came up. There was a keynote speaker, and one of the things she said, and it really resonated with me, she spoke about somebody being interviewed, and they were being asked in an interview, and then for a job interview, what do you do to keep your staff motivated? And the response that this gentleman gave was, I don't try to keep my staff motivated. And she went, holy cow, what does he mean by that? I hope he didn't give that answer in the interview. But he followed on and added to that was, my job is not to motivate people. My job is not to demotivate people. So if I can take away all of the friction and things that cause them hassle in their job, and if I can find ways that is going to improve things, make things easier for them to service customers better, well then overall that's going to lead to a much better working environment plus happy customers. I thought it was a great answer because it's exactly spot on. It is about showing up to be able to serve the team so that they in turn can serve customers. So which comes first? It's chicken and egg, sleep or food? You decide.
Three remarkable things I can take away from today's interview are, firstly, in employment, there are glass ceilings. In self-employment, there are no glass ceilings. How far you go in your business depends on how much effort, investment, and time you put into your business to develop your brand and to win prospects and customers. Secondly, in terms of starting a business, it's highly important that you develop your brand and your story first. In doing so, appeal to people's emotions, not their logic. And thirdly, feedback in any business is highly important. Don't be afraid to ask prospects, clients, or suppliers for feedback on how you can do your business better, because they will be loyal to you and help you to avoid small mistakes that can cause problems down the road. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Deirdre, before I let you go?
No, I think you've captured it beautifully there, John. And absolutely, in terms of the brand piece and the messaging piece, it's not just about the story and the messaging, it's about the entire brand strategy, because as your business grows and scales and evolves and you take on employees, being clear on your purpose, vision, mission and values, not only does that frame the culture of your business as it grows, but also, you can use that in your messaging, in your marketing, even when you're advertising in terms of hiring employees. There are multiple ways that you can tie in your brand strategy into your business as it grows and scales. And I think that often people confuse what your brand is with simply, particularly those who are starting out, they often think that getting your branding done is about creating a logo and a website and that it ends there. But in fact, it's much bigger than that. It's the feeling, the emotion, and the North Star is how I describe it of your business. It should be what guides your business and directs you towards success.
Yeah, it's a great answer. And on that note, I'll end today's interview. Thank you, Deirdre.
Thank you, John.